in the shoes of your students who would be attending this talk today. When I was back in college in my final year, that's when I got exposed to entrepreneurship for the first time. This was 2006, 7.
Mhm.
Did one startup at that time, then things didn't go very well. Spent about a year and a half on that. Then moved to a consulting job, did that for a few years. Then did my postgrad, did my MBA from ISB Hyderabad. Then spent a few years working in a large corporate in Indonesia. Then came back to entrepreneurship in 2015. Um, and since then, it's been two startups now. One was Tappy before this, which we did for 4 years. And now here we've been working on this startup for 2 years now, just about 2 years.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like 13, 14 years now.
Yeah, I
Just
mean, 13, 14 years of total working
total, yeah.
and about seven odd years being an entrepreneur in different forms.
That's what like it's almost like similar, not very similar. Like you reached like far ahead, like where an entrepreneur aspired to be. So once someone tastes like the taste of entrepreneurship, that that never leaves people. So it's on and
I
off, on and off. It's a mode of preparation that people do, but they never leave that journey. It's
yeah,
impossible.
I rather call it the entrepreneurship bug, that once you're bitten, you don't it doesn't leave you that easily. So that's, I mean, but it's always about finding the right thing that you're excited about, and then go on and work on that. You have to. So in between, for many years, I was not an entrepreneur. I was doing jobs, and absolutely nothing wrong with that as well. But if you feel very strongly about any particular problem that you want to solve, and you think you can solve, you can do a good job of it. And of course, many other factors which are also to be taken care of when you're deciding on jumping onto the entrepreneurship journey, which is at times not talked about much, but is an important element, because it's not a straight line journey. It's got it's lots of ups and downs. So you need to make sure that you are ready to take those kind of ups and downs, especially from the family perspective, from or responsibilities perspective. So many factors put together. But I've enjoyed doing this, and it's not about being an entrepreneur. It's just about being, here's a problem, can we solve it, and is there an opportunity there, and just go about it. If it's don't get something tomorrow, probably go back to doing something else, working with someone else, else's idea that we work on. But yeah, I've always enjoyed working on creating something from scratch. 0 to 1 kind of stages of things is what I'm more excited about. Whether in my jobs also, that was the kind of work that I did, and of course, entrepreneurship has always been about that.
Yeah. That's what like it's something like not about like it's of course about creating and other things. But what I deeply feel, it's about like you feel like you are also like we contribute to the nation, we contribute to the people. See,
Absolutely.
there are only two ways of living. Either I have my own dream or I work for someone else's dream. There's only two way
Yeah,
in different levels.
yeah.
So I'm glad.
Yeah, I mean, I've so whenever I speak to people, especially in this phase of their life in college, they're trying to see, is entrepreneurship the thing for them, or should they go for a job. I just want to I tell them always that this is a way of life. If you enjoy this, do this. It's not, it's absolutely fine if you decide to work on someone else's dream. Of course, it's a dream that someone else is creating, but you have also your dreams that you're fulfilling through this opportunity that you get to work with someone. And it's absolutely fine if you think that's what you want to do, because you have to feel very strongly about getting into entrepreneurship. it should be a very strong internal drive for you to decide and jump on that journey. If not, if you're not getting it, it's absolutely fine. I've done jobs for 7 years in between, and I enjoyed working at all places that I did, and learned a lot, made great friends, mentors out of those job opportunities who helped me in my entrepreneurship journey as well. And it's absolutely fine. I mean, there should not be like, it sometimes gets too glamorized or too that startup is the thing that you have to do. It is a great opportunity for you to contribute, to create impact, which is much larger than your individual level. But that's one way of life. There's another way of life, which is go on and help someone build their dream. That's also absolutely fine, and you make a good living doing that as well.
Absolutely. So I think it's 4:10. I would request Mr. Khizar to take this session in a very formal way. I was just talking to sir in a very formal way to understand out of my curiosity. So yes, Mr. Khizar.
Sure, sir. We would be going live on YouTube now. We have on an average around 5,000 viewership on YouTube. So much larger audience are expected to watch via YouTube than Zoom link. So that's okay. So I will be sharing.
Okay.
Sure.
Please also give me access to share my screen so that I have something to share as well.
Sure. Okay, sir. The SRM media team will be posting it on YouTube live concurrently. Sure. Okay, sir. So firstly, a very warm welcome to you and for joining us tonight. Like we know it's Sunday evening and people are mostly in a leisure time, but still we have a lot of participants tonight, and also it shows that enthusiasm and passion towards hearing something unique. So we welcome all along with our special guest tonight. So as a part of custom, whoever a new guest comes, so we introduce our eCell by doing a very short presentation of 2 minutes to give an overall understanding of our eCell and what are initiatives that take place. So with your permission, I would like to go ahead with that. Is it fine?
Sure. Please go ahead.
Sure. Hope my screen is visible. Just a second. Yes, I guess my screen is visible, I guess, right? Yes, sir. So yeah, SRM eCell is a place for all those who think differently. We actually are on a mission to cultivate the sense of entrepreneurship and innovation across the country, because we being in India are, either people are tend towards engineering or medicine or like, a normal 9 to 5 jobs, but very few people, cross that bar and try to do something new. Most people fail, but some do succeed. So that sense of entrepreneurship is very important for a developing country. So that's why we are in this part of initiative. So SRM eCell started like around 8 months ago. We had like 6 people earlier, but now we are a team of 60 plus members, and 500 different students are involved in various direct or indirect activities. So we have 6 particular communities, namely Industry Owl, Unleash Mind, Inventors Village, Social Impact, Speakers Tribe, and Achiever Square. I would be giving a brief about that in the next few slides. But these are the 6 communities which are working in collaboration with each other to make this initiative a success. So this is our basically structure of working. There is a president, myself, and then there are team leaders as well as team members along with extended team. So it goes on like a corporate way to give that sense of how a corporate environment works. So yes, basically Industry Owl is has the functioning of liaising, industry experts and corporate people along with colleges, collaboration with them, signing MOUs, working in par with, we actually sign MOUs with certain different industries so that we give our students as interns, and then at the same time we learn real life experience from how a startup works in by them. So that's what industry outlet. And Unleash Mind is basically about, people focus mostly about on academics and all that, whereas they miss that very important thing of self development and personal well-being. So this particular community focuses on that particular aspect of research on mind and body, and to develop your cognitive skills as well. Inventors Village is basically a technical wing of our ECEL, which acts as a common place for all having innovative brains, so that they brainstorm together and come up with ideas. Social Impact 2 is the social entrepreneurship wing, where we work with where projects like Unnat Bharat Abhiyan by the government of India and all that, so that at least we can help create a small difference in the people who are not as privileged as us. And Speakers Tribe is basically a community which enhances the communication skills. It's not only about a language. We focus upon the art of communication. So to make an impression, speech is one of the most important thing, and we research on this, on neuro-linguistic programming, on and particular aspects of that. Achievers Square is basically a particular community which harnesses the opportunities from the ecosystem. We have a lot of events going on outside, but we don't generally know that because we don't go and search. So basically, this particular community brings information of all that, all the opportunities, events, webinars, and all that, so that we get a common space for all that information. So our scope of work and evaluation is certainly different. I mean, we work on corporate and government. We have like a structure of working. So, and then there is our mentor panel who are like, all these people are onboarded by the students itself. We have 35 plus national and international mentors, like 20 plus of them are founders and CEOs, so that we get a real life experience from startup and all. And we have experts, industry experts, we have personality coaches and all that. So this is just a gist of all the mentors we have. Like, we have a lot of more mentors, but keeping them all in a single slide would be too clumsy. So you can find out more about that on www.srmecel.com under our mentors. So these are some of our events which we have done in the past 6 months. Basically, we have our TBI cohort. We had a talk with the CEO of GMR Air Logistics Department, Mr. Saurabh Kumar. So and also Mr. Satyam Khandelwal, who is a personality expert. I mean, personality development expert and all that. So we do have a lot of events in the past few days. So this is basically our working, our hierarchy. It's just for the convenience of sake of operations to give a just about how a corporate environment works. So basically, we have some of our recent sanctions are, Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, where the government of India provided sanctioned 0.8 million rupees for development of nearby 5 clusters of villages, so that we can improve their livelihood along with their amenities and all that. Along with, we have our HashLab Research Center, which I'll be talking about. It's a technology business incubator where we give a boost and we give a support to startup ideas. If at all a person has an idea, so basically we have our president's funding as well, up to 5 lakhs. Apart from that, we have our MSME funds up to 15 lakhs for venture ideation and 1 crore for scale up. We have that thing. So some of our recent initiatives are Survey. Survey is basically the women entrepreneurship thing, because we surely believe that women need to have they need to have a platform to express themselves and grow, because India is a country where we have a lot of women, like Pratibha Patil, and then we have this Indra Nooyi, Miss Indra Nooyi, all these people who have a significant who have caused a significant impact to the society. So this is a particular platform where all the women entrepreneurs come together and work together. So one of our other aspect is school entrepreneurship. We believe that entrepreneurship is not only about starting a company; it's about developing that sense of leadership, which basically people children in school don't get it, because either they don't have that awareness, or either their parents force them to do something either in a technical or a medical field. So basically, this knowledge must be imparted in that early age as well. So we have the school entrepreneurship initiative as well running. So these are some of our recent days events, which National Handloom Day, and then these are the rural entrepreneurship aspects where we visited a lot of nearby clusters, so that we can get to know about their problems and come up with possible solutions and all that. So this is our team basically which made all this possible. Because nothing is there without a good team. So this is our brilliant minds behind all these initiatives. As well as these are our extended team members who are a part of all the initiatives. We are thankful for all of them. So HasLab Research Center, which I was talked about earlier, is a technology business incubator. This is the company, RI.ai, which is the very first company of our university. It's very first startup, I mean. So this company received a seed funding of around angel investment of around $120,000. They are doing really great in terms of entrepreneurship, early entrepreneurship stages, I must say. So we do have a lot of tie-ups with the University of California, for example, like Sudarja Center of Entrepreneurship Technology. We have tie-ups with Kingston University, London, and all of these. So yes, who are our partners to help us support and grow, I think. So this is the broad nutshell about ECL and TBI. ECL and TBI work in part with each other. They have like ECL basically harnesses the opportunities from the ecosystem and provides the resources to the ventures which are being ideated in the TBI. We have around 35 plus ventures currently. Whereas TBI, we have ventures, right? So basically a venture goes through all the stages from scratch to seed funding. So we get a real life experience about how exactly a startup must go on the entire process, a real first-hand experience of that. So that way we are interconnected. So this is basically the overall going of HasLab Research Center. We have the enrollment, we have the mentoring phase, we have the the brainstorming phase, experimental phases, and outdoor activities as well. This is the overall picture of the TBI which goes on. Field visits, identification of IP components, and I guess you will definitely know better about it because being a co-founder of an institute. So yes, these are different initiatives which take place. Like in Industry Max series is basically this particular series where a person from industry expert comes and share his or her real life experience so that we can gain knowledge from that particular thing. So yeah, this is what we are doing. And then yeah, this is the overall picture of our ECL and TBI. So that's it I would like to say. I would like to then stop the sharing over here. So yes, sir, without further ado, I guess you have waited a lot of time for this particular initiative. So let me introduce our guest tonight. Mr. Snehanshu Gandhi is co-founder of an app named Kaagaz Scanner. Kaagaz Scanner is an app which has special mentions by elite people like, Honorable Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi in Mann Ki Baat, Honorable Education Minister Mr. Ramesh Pokhriyal in Atmanirbhar Bharat App Innovation Challenge, special mention, and then Ministry of Education, and mostly all reputed newspapers like, India Times, the Indian Express, Business Standard, etc. So this is not an easy journey because in the last 2 years, where most of us are facing, a lot of issues, the entire world has paused during the coronavirus pandemic. Whereas some people like Mr. Snehanshu Gandhi, along with his co-founders, worked on certain productive work and made it possible so that to make a stand that anything is possible in under any circumstances. Mr. Snehanshu Gandhi is an alumni of both the IIT Bombay and the Indian School of Business with multiple entrepreneurial achievements. Kaagaz Scanner app is an Indian document scanning and storage mobile app on both iOS and Android. It was launched in June 2020 as an alternative to the banned Chinese apps, we know, right? CamScan and all that, by a team of 3 seasoned entrepreneurs along of alumni of IITs and IIT Pune, along with Mr. Snehanshu Gandhi. So without further ado, I would like to pass on the stage to Mr. Snehanshu Gandhi to share his experience on this. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for the introduction and thank you so much for having me here. I look forward to spending the next about an hour with the audience here. If you can give me access to share my screen, I would like to share something here.
Sure, sir. Do you have the access right now?
Yeah, I have it now. Can you see this? The screen?
Yes, it is visible. Yes, sir.
Great. So, yeah, so I have a bunch of things to share from my experiences of being an entrepreneur and would like to share it with everyone here. I don't want to have a presentation. I think there's some disturbance coming on my
Yes. Okay, just a second, sir. I guess.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
now
think it's good now. Yeah, cool. So yeah, I've basically divided the things that I want to speak about in three broad things. One, I'll share my journey so far of building my startups over years and what I've done in between. And another part of sharing my key learnings of what I've learned during these years. And then maybe would like to answer some of the questions that I regularly get from people who are aspiring to be entrepreneurs and would like to share some of my thoughts on that. And then, of course, we can get more questions as people, if people have those. So, quick background about myself. I'm an IIT Bombay graduate from 2007. Did my first startup actually back in college when I was just completed my third year, was getting into my final year. The first company that I started was called India Interns in 2006. This, as the name says, was basically an internship platform for students and companies to engage and get internships. The idea for me, and that's been a theme across many years of being an entrepreneur for me, is I looked at a problem, and mind you, 2006 was not the time when entrepreneurship ecosystem was as vibrant as it is today. There were hardly any investors, there were hardly any startups coming up. So when we started in 2006, India Interns, we actually did not start it to become entrepreneurs. We just saw a problem, which when we got our internships, the mandatory internship that you have in engineering for after your third year, we were able to get good internships thanks to being from one of the premier institutes of the country. But when we spoke to our friends, when I spoke to other friends, I saw that a lot of them actually had a lot of challenges to get a good internship because of various reasons, but basically they did not have access. It could be because their college is in a smaller city, or their college doesn't get a lot of companies coming there to hire for internships, etc. And they were struggling to get good interns. Some of the very bright students also not getting good opportunities. So we thought, let's create a platform where we'll get students and companies. And if there can be something for jobs, which Naukri.com, for example, was already there, why can't there be something for internships as well? And let's create a platform which will get opportunities for students to apply for internships at a lot of larger companies as well. And larger companies also have a bigger pool to choose from, not just limited colleges that they go to. With that idea, India Interns got started, and we're still in college. Very excited about the new project, and just three of us started working on it together. Three friends, we had worked together as part of the college technical festival organizing team as well. So we knew each other well. We had a good tuning. We were friends, so we decided to start. And honestly, at that time, it was not a company that we were starting. We were just building a product. We were building a platform which will help people. We'll think about business building a little later, but we just started building the platform, and we got a lot of companies on the platform. Even companies like Yahoo, Microsoft, Google were on the platform. We had over 5,000 students who were on the platform in that 1 year period. But things were going on great while we were still in college. As we went out of college and we decided to pursue this as the journey that we want to go ahead with, and not go to the jobs that we had got on campus, we realized a lot of things that we did not know at that time. As I said, we were not starting a startup. We were just building a platform in our minds. And the moment the business part of things started coming in, the legal part of things started coming in, the financial part of things started coming in, we got a bit flustered. Honestly, at that point, we were very young, and there was no ecosystem to tell us that this is how it would work. There were no talks like these happening. There were no other startups near us who could guide us how to do things. And we just got a bit frustrated that probably we are not at the right stage to build this. We don't understand a lot of the business building aspects of it. Eventually, I mean, even after winning a business plan competition where we were getting some funding and all of that was there, but we still were decided to move on and The platform ran for a few more months, but then eventually shut it down. Then, of course, joined a job which I'd got on campus, a consulting company, a boutique consulting firm, and did that for the next 3.5 years or so. In between also, since I'd enjoyed building India interns from scratch, one of the things for me was that I still enjoy doing things from scratch, and I would like to work in a smaller setup where I get opportunities like those. And I worked at at the consulting firm, helped them build or set up a new venture and be part of that, learn some of the things which I thought I did not understand about business earlier, tried learning that in that period. Then did my master's from ISB Hyderabad in 2011-12, spent a year there. After that, took up a job in a large corporate company in Indonesia. Next 3.5 years spent working in Indonesia in Jakarta. As we were talking just before this this talk became live, entrepreneurship, I say it's entrepreneurship bug that once it's bitten you, it comes back. And though it had been a few years, almost 7-8 years that I shut down India interns, I still was itching to do something. And probably I was at the right stage in my career, in my life in general, that I could take that risk again. And decided to come back to India from Indonesia in 2015 to start TapMe, which was my second venture, providing maintenance services to Tier 2 India. And we were present in, we scaled the business over 4 years. That's where Gaurav, Taman and I started working together. Gaurav and I were co-founders and Taman was the CTO there. Started building that company, built it for 4 years, scaled it significantly. We were present in 4 cities when we were at the peak, in cities like Visakhapatnam, Patna, Jaipur, headquartered out of Gurgaon. But again, there are many parts of building a business, and everything doesn't go always right. We hear about a lot of, we hear mostly about success stories, but there are a lot of challenges that a lot of startups face. We also face a lot of challenges, whether it was related to funding or being able to scale the business, or things like unit economics, etc. And in 2019, we decided to move on from TapMe after doing a lot of things in between, B2C, B2B, building some SaaS, all of that we tried in the 4 years. The business was scaling well, but there were other challenges, and we decided to move on. In 2019, and as I said initially, for me, the whole point of getting started is not about I want to become an entrepreneur, but it's all about here's a problem. I see this as a large problem. I think there are many other people affected by this. Can we solve it? Can we bring a good solution to people? And if we can create that kind of impact, then I would like to take that jump. And that is what was TapMe when I was looking at the home services market, how fragmented it was in India. And this is just about the time when companies like UrbanFab were also getting started. So it was a time when we also saw that as an opportunity and wanted to do something there. While that did not work out, there was a personal problem that I was facing with respect to managing my personal documents. It was a simple thing that I felt, but it was triggered by a personal incident where there was an incident and my family did not have access to the documents that they would have wanted at that time, and I was not around to help them. That's where the idea came that I need something where all my documents get organized automatically. I don't have to put the effort. I'll upload a document, whether it is my insurance document or my medical document or my education document. It should be able to identify what this document is, organize it for me, and help me manage this information overload that I have in my life today. With that idea, Sorted AI was born. Of course, when you're starting, you don't, being an entrepreneur before also, I knew it's not something that I can build alone. I wanted people to, be with me, a strong co-founding team. And I asked my co-founders at TapMe, I asked Gaurav, would he like to be part of this as well? I asked Taman, would he want to become part of this new initiative? And we decided to start building the product. And it was a very simple product that you upload a document to Sorted. The product's name is Sorted AI. You upload a document to Sorted AI. It's an AI-powered productivity app. It will automatically identify what this document is, whether it's a personal ID, insurance, investment, vehicle document, etc. Categorize it for you, even set up reminders for things like renewal dates from those documents automatically, or payment due dates from those documents automatically. And we thought we are actually building something great. We spoke to a lot of people. Everyone said, yeah, this is a pain for us also, managing this information. This will be a very helpful product. But then, as they say, until you put your product in the hands of the user, you don't know exactly what they're thinking. The moment we built the product and gave it in the hands of the users, all those people who were excited about it, we did not see that user behavior converting. We did not see them uploading a lot of documents. Then we started thinking again, what's happening? Why are people not uploading stuff? If they were so excited before, why are they not doing it now? And learning a lot of things, we figured that in India, all of these documents are coming in as physical form. They have to scan that document and then upload to Sorted AI. People who knew about a scanning app would have to scan it in another app and then upload to Sorted AI. Or people like my father, who's also managing all this kind of information for the family. He did not know about a scanning app at that time, so he would think he had to get it scanned in a physical scanner in his office or at a shop nearby and then upload to Sorted AI. A very high friction step. No one would want to do that kind of effort to organize documents. So we thought people are still scanning documents to share. So let's make a scanner ourselves. And that's where I would like to make a small correction in the intro that was made. Kaga Scanner was actually launched before the ban happened. It was launched when actually 2 weeks before the ban happened, because we were trying to solve a problem for ourselves. We were trying to see why are users not uploading documents to Sorted AI. Let's build a scanner. People will use the scanner to scan and share documents, and then the AI engine will kick in and it will start doing the magic for them. So for us, it was more of an extension to our existing product. And we launched the product in June 2020. Of course, at that time, the whole sentiment around building for India and Atmanirbhar Bharat had already begun. So we decided to call it Kagas. We wanted to call it a very Indian name so that we can build an Indian scanner. At that time, there was no major Indian scanner app available at that time. So we thought, let's make it as an Indian scanner and called it Kagas. From there, 2 weeks later, the Chinese apps got banned. And with that, we started getting a lot of traction coming our way. People were looking for an Indian alternative, and Kagas, being an obviously Indian product, was immediately something that people jumped onto. And within a day, we had 100,000 downloads. And that kind of put us in a different trajectory. And we also discovered a different audience, which I'd like to share a little more about, since you're talking about how, ideas and how do you tap into the right opportunity. We were building something else. We were building something for ourselves, which is an AI-powered, very high-tech kind of a product, to building a scanner, which is considered a very basic product. So once we built a scanner, we got a lot of feedback from our users. All the 100,000 users who downloaded it within a day and over almost 1 million within a month, all those users started coming and giving us feedback. And honestly, at that point, as I said, we were just experimenting with something, and we were testing it out as an extension to our existing product. So the product was not completely, well built at that time. It was a very basic scanner. It would do its job well, but it was very basic product, which meant that we started getting a lot of feedback from our users. They started asking for things. They said, this is working, this is not working. We want this as well. We want that as well. And that is the best way of building anything that you want. Build it with your users. Learn from them what they want and build it, instead of thinking in your head what you think they would want. Instead, it's always better to get that information directly from the users. And we were lucky to have hundreds of thousands of users who were giving us this feedback. With that, we started figuring out that, okay, here's a different audience in India. Here's a completely different target audience, which we now call the Bharat users. They have come to the internet for the first time in the last 4 or 5 years, thanks to Jio and Airtel, the internet becoming very cheap and the smartphones becoming cheap. Now everyone's got a smartphone, and they've come to internet and come to a digital life. And a lot of them have leapfrogged the desktop generation completely. They've never worked on a desktop or a laptop. That means they are smartphone only users. They don't have a secondary device like that, which is a very different audience that we started thinking about. If you think about their communication, they're not email users like us. They are WhatsApp users. For them, communication happens on WhatsApp, business happens on WhatsApp, file sharing happens on WhatsApp. So this is a different user. They are non-search or non-browser users. They don't navigate the digital world like us. For us, anything that we have in mind, we go to the browser or we go to Google. For this user, they actually go to an app which will tell them what to buy, what to watch, whether it is a TikTok or a Moj telling them what video to watch, or an e-commerce website telling them what product to buy. So they are driven by apps and the AI engine recommendations of these apps. So that's a very different behavior. They're also non-text users. All of these users are very comfortable making pictures, making videos, sending emojis, sending voice notes, but not a text user the way we are. And they're non-English users, or at least the preferred language is not English. Their preferred language is their regional language, which told us that this is a very different audience. Their requirements are very different. Their understanding of technology is very different. And they're looking for tools. Till now, they were thinking of their smartphone as a communications and entertainment device. Now they're realizing the power of a smartphone. It's a computer in their hands, and they're figuring out that it can do a lot more. And they're looking for tools. And the tools that exist today are not built for Bharat users for various reasons. They were built for the desktop generation, built largely for the world, for the Western world, and was adapted to mobile and definitely not adapted for this audience. And that's where, the whole idea of Kagas evolved from being a scanner to a document super app for the Bharat users, something that helps them in every aspect of documents, whether it is document consumption, which is where scanner and our Kagas as a PDF reader as well, or whether it is document editing, where the PDF tools come in, or it is document storage on cloud, or it is document creation. So we are thinking of Kagas as a document super app, which helps the Bharat users for everything that they want to do related to documents. And that's where Kagas is now been. This is just to show how the product is. I would like everyone to just try it out and see how the product works for them. We are available in 11 Indian languages, and it's something that is built for Bharat, something that is very easy to use, something that is built for mobile. So that's how Kagas journey has evolved. And the whole idea of telling all of this is because the next part of my what I want to talk about brings in learnings that I will be able to, now that you've understood this part, you'll be able to relate to these learnings a lot more. So these learnings are something that I've condensed over time with my experiences and learning from others, learning from books and all those things. But these are very simple 4 or 5 things that I want to share here. The first and most important thing is always start with a why. Entrepreneurship looks very exciting, a lot of times very glamorous. You feel like I'm going to be my own boss, and I'm going to build something that everyone is going to use. It feels a lot glamorous, and it feels a lot something that people think about, that it is going to be very exciting and it's all going to be fun. Not to dissuade people, but it's not a straightforward straight line journey. It's going to have its ups and downs. And when you are hitting the low in your journey, and for sure it comes in every startup journey, every founder's journey, when you hit a low, it could be, your user traction is not building up. It could be your team, you have team challenges. It could be your funding challenges. All of those things would definitely come. At that point, you need a much stronger why of what will keep you motivated to continue in that journey. That why is very important. That why are you building this? Why have you got into entrepreneurship? Things like, I want to be my own boss. It may look like something that is the case, but honestly, when you're an entrepreneur, and if you've raised funds, your investors are your boss. I mean, you're answerable to them. Maybe not your boss, but you're answerable to them. Your customers are you're answerable to your customers. You're answerable to your team, and all of that is would suddenly start feeling the thought that you start with, that I want to be my own boss and I'll not be answerable to anyone. That's not the case. You are answerable to a lot more people, because a lot more people are the stakeholders in what you're building. It's your team, it's your users, it's your investors, everyone. So having that strong why is very important. And why of starting up, and why this idea, or why this space idea, I would not say specifically, because ideas are something that change. We've changed ideas over time. Across all my startups, we've changed ideas. The overall theme remains the same, but the idea evolves. But you should have a very strong reason that why do you want to do this, so that anytime you're going through a phase where things are not working the way you would want, you have a stronger motivation inside that I want to continue because there's much larger things at stake. That's the learning number one for me. And the second important thing is make something that people want. Now, if I take the example of Sorted and Kaagaz, Sorted was something that we wanted. I thought I'm solving a problem for myself, and there are many users like me. Then this must be something that people want. And we did surveys, we spoke to people, and people said, yeah, we'd love to do this. That's also another point, that just a small thing I'd like to add here is, a lot of us try to do a survey to get feedback or even talk to people. Try to make it a very unbiased question that you ask them. If I go on and ask someone that, I'm building an app which will automatically organize your documents, would you want it? Everyone's going to say yes, of course. Why would anyone say no to that? It's going to make their life easy. But does that mean that that's a pressing need for them today? Maybe not. And that would define their behavior in the app, not that they like what you're building. So the important part is to figure out what people want. And we realize Sorted AI is not something that people want today. But Scanner and all the tools that we started building now is what people need today. They are actually looking for these tools. And that's where making something people want becomes important, because we had spent almost a year building Sorted AI, and we had not even reached 30,000 users or downloads for Sorted AI. And Kaagaz got 100,000 in a day. And it's now at almost 7 million. So that's the kind of drastic change you will see when you hit something that people really want. Before that, it will all look like struggle. And after that, it will look like overnight success. It's not that. It was over time that we were trying to figure out what do people want, and keep talking to users, keep experimenting, keep looking at data. Till you've figured that out, it's going to be a struggle. The moment you figured out, which is what can also be termed as the product market fit that you've got, once you've got that, suddenly things will start looking very different. People really, you're just building and people are just lapping up the product, and there's a lot of feedback coming that you want this also, you want that also. Those are all great signs of hitting something that people want and making something that people want. So that's an important part. In the initial years, once you've decided why you want to get into entrepreneurship, this is where you'll be spending a lot of time initially, trying to figure out what people want. And I don't know exactly what the mix of audience here is, but it definitely happens with a lot of engineers, that you think of a problem and you think of a solution and then you start building, because you feel, unless I built a solution, how do I take it to people, and how do I, you have to first make something. But that's also not required, or you don't need to put a lot of effort into doing that. You could just go on and speak to the users, build something which is very scrappy initially, maybe a WhatsApp group, or maybe something that is managed over an Excel, or there are a lot of no-code tools available today. Use those tools, create something quickly as an MVP, put it out in the hands of the users, and let them then tell you what they like, what they don't like. If you spend 3-6 months or even longer just building something perfect that you think would be the solution, it may just happen that by the time you've launched it, people either do not have that requirement anymore, or you realize that this is not what people wanted. They wanted something else. So let's not get into that trap, which happens with a lot of engineers and a lot of first-time entrepreneurs. I also did that mistake. Even in case of TapMe, when we started, we thought, we are building an on-demand home services startup. So we need to have a website where people can order for services like electrician, plumber. You also need an app, and then only we'll be able to start. And we spent 2-3 months initially trying to build that. And then we realized that, why do we need an app at the start? Right now, it's not that one day, within a day, we're going to get 1,000 people coming to look for services. We just need something to get started. So we decided we'll keep on making the app, but we'll launch our service with a phone number. We just put out a phone number saying, here's a number, get a great service for your maintenance requirements for your home. Just dial on this number and we'll book a service. And it was us who was taking those calls, the initial team members. So that is what an MVP means, that you just get started and then learn from the users what they want. With the orders that started coming in, we realized, do people need more of an AC technician or more of a carpenter? And then you can build your product accordingly. So that's where the focus should be for the initial years. Try to just get something out quickly, an MVP into the hands of the users, and then keep iterating until you've figured out something that people really want. That's the second important learning for me. The third one is ideas are commodity, execution of them is not. This also is a question that I get very regularly, that should I share my idea with others? What if someone copies my idea? You should always assume that if you're working on an idea, if you're thinking about an idea, there are 10 other people who are also doing that. It will matter. What will matter is the execution. Out of the 10, probably 7 will never get started also. They'll just die at the idea stage itself. 3 who will start, out of those 3 also probably 1 will make a big impact. Others may just die down. So it's all about execution. Ideas are very important, because if you're working on something which actually no one wants, then there's no point of execution also. But once you figure that out, don't worry that someone is going to copy it. Assume that someone's already thinking about it. Now, how do you out execute everyone? How do you execute so better than everyone else that you are going to win that market, not anyone else? Focus on that. And the question that people have, what if someone steals my idea? If it's that simple for someone to steal and go on and execute better than you, probably not a good idea to even start working. It should not be something that anyone could just come up one day and build something which is better than you and execute better than you. And if that is the case, then think of an idea that is not that and focus on that part. So do not worry about your ideas. In fact, talk to as many people as you can about the idea that you have and learn from that feedback, and then build what you want to build and focus on execution. And that's the way to go once you figured out what you want to build. The next learning for me is, this is not a short-term game. Again, media and everyone talking about will tell you about overnight successes and people who became very successful. It's not something that that is the norm. In fact, the odds are typically against you. Only very small percentage of startups become very successful. Of course, there are some things that we spoke about in the before three learnings, which lead to some of them not being successful. But another important part is, it's a long journey. Easily assume it's a 7 to 8 years journey in which a significant impact will be created, a significant outcome will be achieved. If you can do it in 3 years, great, but that's not the norm. Norm would be 7, 8 years or longer. So to win, you have to stay in the game. You have to stay in the game long enough to be able to say that everyone else who tried either did not exist now, or we've refined our product and our service and our offering so much that users are loving it so much that we are now going to be a very large company. To do that, you need a lot of things to be in place. But most important part is, if you have a very strong why and you strongly believe that this is a future that's going to definitely exist, and I'm going to be the one who's going to make it, then you stick around, keep building. Staying in the game doesn't mean just keep doing the same thing and expect different results. Of course, you have to keep iterating, keep evolving as your user feedback comes in, as you learn about the industry more, as you learn about the business more. Keep evolving and keep working on it, and stay as long as you can. It increases your probability of winning significantly. So that's the fourth learning. And fifth, and I would say most important, is the team. Get great people to work with. It doesn't necessarily have to be your co-founders only. Co-founders have to have, you have to focus a lot on getting people who you enjoy working with, and you can go through ups and downs together. But even your initial founding team or initial first 10, 15 people, those people are the ones who are going to make sure that this works or not. And everything else that we spoke about in the previous slides, without a great team, it's not possible. Without a great team, you will not be able to ideate. Without a great team, you will not be able to execute. And without the great team, you will not be able to stay in the game long enough to win it. So get a great team. How to get a great team? There are many ways to do that. But co-founding team, it's best if you have someone who with whom your bonding is so good that you understand each other very well. It can be your friends. It may not necessarily be your closest of friends. A lot of times, people work very well with people who are they're not really very close friends. Eventually, they become close friends, but that may not be the case. So maybe co-workers, people who you have worked with, who you know the strengths of those people, what they bring to the table, and have a rapport uh, that makes sure that everyone is aligned towards the same objective of making this idea great, making this company big. With that, what happens is within a founding team, it's not that we are great friends and we don't fight. There's always I wouldn't say fight, but there's always heated arguments about things, because all of us are very passionate about what we're building, and we have very strong views of how we think of the world, which means there are conversations where we have different point of views and we are debating it very passionately. That in that phase, it should not be that the other team member is getting offended by what is being said, or is worried that if I say something, the other person will get offended. It should be that level of rapport that you will say all kinds of things in that discussion. But once that discussion is over, once all of you have aligned towards one thing, you'll forget everything that happened in that conversation, and you'll now know that this is what we are going to work on. That's the kind of focus, bonding that you need in that team. It doesn't have to be that you're hanging out every day together after work. In our team also, it's not the case that we hang out together every day, but we have the kind of rapport amongst us that we can have those difficult conversations and come out with things that matter for the business to become better. So focus on getting a great team. It will also be a lot more fun if you're working with a good set of people. So I think that's the most important thing. Everything else will fall in place if you have fixed this part. So these are just 5 broad learnings that I have. Start with a very strong why. Build something that people want. Focus on execution. Do not worry that your idea will get stolen. Stay in the game long enough. That increases your chances of winning much significantly. And find a great team to work with. Great co-founders and great early team for sure. And once you've built that set of 10, 15 people, you'll have a culture that will attract more similar kind of, more kind of people who will fit into that kind of culture well. So, but focus on that a lot. That will be very important. Now, for people who are thinking about entrepreneurship, especially in college and thinking how to go about it, there are a few other questions that I get regularly. I'd just like to take them up and try to answer them for. So some of those questions are: how to come up with an idea? How do I get an idea to start a company? How to find co-founders? How to raise funding? This is also a question that I get regularly. What about financial stability? And what if I don't like it? Just want to do a job. So I'll start off with the last one first. What if I don't like it and just want to do a job? It's absolutely fine. When you attend talks like these, it just feels like entrepreneurship is the best thing in the world. It is a great opportunity for you to create an impact, which is probably much larger than your individual capacity. It is a great way to create something that people want to use, people are going to love. But it's not something that is the only or the best way to do things. It's absolutely fine if you don't like this, if you don't think this is for you. Take up a job, help build someone else. As I said, team is very important. The founders are only 2 or 3, but after that, the majority of the work is being done by the team, and go be part of an early team. Or if you're not decided yet that is it right for you or not, go work with a startup, work within in their initial team and see how things work. There's a lot of opportunities to create impact in that case as well. I've worked in companies and I have enjoyed working there. I've got great learnings there. I've got great mentors from there. So absolutely nothing wrong with that. And it's not that entrepreneurship is the best way of doing things. Once you figured out, no, this is what I want to do, and entrepreneurship is what I want to go in the direction of, then comes some of these questions that I've listed above. How to come up with an idea. Now, there are different frameworks that are there, but so two broad things that I have noticed. One is you solve a problem that you are facing or someone near you is facing. So in case of India interns, it was a problem that we kind of faced as students or we saw our friends facing. In case of TAPME, it was a problem that I saw a lot of my friends and family facing in tier 2 India, looking for a great service for all kinds of requirements for the home. And in case of Sorted AI, it was a problem that I was trying to solve for myself. So that's one way which has worked for me, or that, at least that's how I think. That problems that I see, I face, or people near me face, and you try to solve for those problems. How do you identify those problems? Just keep a very curious and curious outlook towards everything that you see in your day-to-day life. A lot of times we take things for granted that this has been happening this way forever, so this must be the only way. But try questioning that. Why is it this way? Why can't it be a better way? And if you think that, yeah, there could be a better way also, and if you can think of ways in which it can be better, that means there's an opportunity. Will it be very large opportunity or not? Is it affecting a lot of people or not? Are the next steps. But the first step is to be curious about everything, to question that you see things around you and you feel this can be better, and start thinking about those parts. That's one way that that has worked for me. And if you start doing that regularly, you'll end up having, like, every weekend you'll be sitting with your friends and you'll be discussing some new idea, and during that conversation, it will look like, this looks great, let's build it, let's start a company, or all that kind of conversations will happen. But the moment that weekend is over, you'll start forgetting about those ideas. Most of the ideas will fizzle out at that stage itself, that you stop thinking about that idea. But once in a while there'll be an idea that will stick in your head. You will keep thinking about it even after that conversation is long ended. Even during the week, you're thinking about it and you're again trying to see what could be a better solution for that. That is a sign that there is something in there, and you need to dig deeper to figure out how large the opportunity could be, and is it something that really people want. And that's how you can then continue refining your idea, and one day you feel that this makes sense, this should be done, and let's build it. That is one way, observing things around you and figuring out solutions for things. The other way is, technology is changing rapidly, markets are changing rapidly. If you know that in your field that, okay, artificial intelligence has become a lot easier to implement now, a lot more capable now, and then you see another opportunity that here's a large market, whether it is the Bharat market that we are looking at, the Bharat audience, and building tools for them. Or if you look at healthcare, there's a large market there. If you see agri, there's a large market there. And if you think that here's a technology, and if I could put that technology in this market, there's a large opportunity that can be created. That's also one way of thinking of it, that here's a large growing market which has inefficiencies, and here's a technology that could solve it, and I have understanding of it. So let's go on and solve that. That's another way of coming up with an idea, and works for people, and absolutely a good way to do it. So those are broad two ways, or two frameworks in which I think you can look for ideas and come up with something. The second question is how to find co-founders. It's actually, there's no straight answer to this. typically companies get started where friends from college decide to work together, or friends from work decide to build a company together. This is typically how it will work. In a lot of cases, it will also be that you start working on an idea and then start talking to more people and start consciously looking for a co-founder, and you'll be able to get a good team member. The important part, as I said, is something that firstly, they should be very passionate about what you're trying to build. It should not be that, okay, I want to become an entrepreneur and I don't have any strong idea right now, so let me come and work with you. It should not be that, because again, if that person doesn't have a strong why, then he or she will not be as passionate about what you're doing. The passion may build over time, but that becomes a little challenging. So they should get excited about the idea first, for sure. That's one important thing that I would suggest. That talk to people about the idea that you're thinking about, and see who's getting very excited about it, and probably that's where your co-founder is. And of course, the other part is the kind of skill sets that they can bring on the table, which if they're complementary, it's always great. If you're planning to build a tech company and you don't know how to code, it's always best to have a co-founder who can code. So that's another part of looking for a co-founder. The other part that is how to raise funding. This is a question that comes very often, thanks to also the hype that is created around funding of all startups. But my suggestion to everyone who's starting up or thinking of starting up is, don't think of funding on day one. At day one, you should be thinking about what problem are you solving, for whom are you solving it, and how large is that market. If you have good answers for those things, funding is something that eventually will come. There is an effort that you have to put in towards that also. It's not something that will just happen. But if you haven't answered the first 3-4 questions, which is what you are building, for whom you are building, what problem are you solving for them, do you have a good team in place or not? Until you've got those things addressed, funding will be a challenge. But once you've got that, funding becomes a lot easier to raise. So initially, just focus on getting a good initial team in place, people who are passionate about the idea. At that time, you do not need money, because if they're passionate, they'll be okay working without money or very little money at the start, and become co-founders or early team members. And focus on building something quickly, and ship it out. Give it in the hands of users. Traction helps a lot in fundraising. If you've been able to show a traction of any kind, that I have these 100 users who are using this, that brings in a lot of credibility to what you're saying. But that's important. That's very important. And initially, your first round of funding would be on the team, not so much on the idea, or not so much on what you've already executed, but more about the team. Is the team capable to build something like this? Do they have the hustle to build something like this? Are they passionate enough to sustain a longer period to build this? That is where most of the initial funding will happen. So make sure that you get a great team in place who's excited about the idea, and you start building, and keep talking to investors. How to reach to investors. There are many things. I'm sure ESL will help you with a lot of resources on that, how to reach to investors. But focus on that part first, and then funding as a next step. And the last question that I have here from my side is, what about financial stability? It's a very important piece that you should answer for yourself. If you're someone who has responsibilities, family dependencies are there, etc., make sure that you address them to whatever degree possible. If you think you can't provide that support, still having that buy-in from your immediate family is very important. You need to have a buy-in from your family that you are getting into entrepreneurship, and if they are supporting you, it becomes a lot easier, so that you can now focus on the business and the startup more than worrying about the family challenges. Still, there will be cases where it's very difficult to explain to your parents why do you want to leave a job and start a company? At that point, again, and that's what you'll be doing for at least for the many initial months, is you have to sell it to them as well, that this is a vision that you want to build, this is what you want to build, and this is a great opportunity, and they should think that yeah, you should be doing this, and try to get that buy-in as much as possible. It becomes a lot easier if you don't have to worry about that part in your life, because startup is anyway going to take up a lot of your focus for many months to come. So think about financial stability. In our case, in my case, for example, when I was moving back from Indonesia, I was already married by that time. We were expecting our first child, so that meant a lot of responsibilities to take care of, and having support of my wife and my parents, etc. It was very important for me that they should, because they are the ones who are also going to be part of this journey over the next few years, and they need to believe and give me that opportunity. At the same time, I knew I have some financial responsibilities for which, since I'd worked for a few years already, I had saved up enough to sustain that for some time. My wife was also working, that helped a lot in that part as well. So definitely think about financial stability, get the buy-in from your family as much as possible, and then jump into it. Will make your life a lot easier as you go forward. Yeah, that's about it from my side. What I wanted to share. I don't know how much time I have taken. Am I in my time limit or not? But yeah, this is what I had to share.
Yes, sir. Thank you for sharing such a wonderful journey. Yes, like people mostly think that entrepreneurship is just about starting, having an idea and starting stuff, but people don't think about all these questions about financial stability and what if I don't like it? That's the most important question. People generally go into it, and if they don't can't make it, then they go into sort of depression, and there's sort of most circumstances where people cannot cope up with it. So understanding all this before starting a company is very much important. So I highly appreciate for sharing that views. Also, sir, I had a question in my mind. Like, for example, we have companies, like oftentimes we see most of the companies are not exactly unique. Like if you see Swiggy, and then we have Zomato. And similarly for scanning apps, we have multiple scanning apps, but still almost all of them stand out in this and have their own audience, a set of audience. So how is that even possible? Like, how is that?
So see, when you think of an idea, and especially in a market like India, there's so much diversity across the kind of audiences that are available, that there is an opportunity to serve all of them, and they may need different solutions. So there is definitely space for more players. It's not a winner take all market in any segment. Largely in any segment, it's not like a winner take all market, especially India. But it also is a fact that not everyone will be able to make it large. There'll be only, so if you think of food delivery also, there are only two companies. If you think of e-commerce also, there are only two companies. So in most of the markets, there'll be 2-3 companies that will remain, whether it is e-commerce or cab hailing or food delivery, etc. So that said, there is opportunity to serve different kinds of users, especially when the market is nascent, when it's in the initial stages, that all the companies have just started. So someone to start a food delivery company today would probably not be a great idea. But when Swiggy started, there would have been 5 other companies who were trying to do the same thing, because market was nascent and it was something that everyone could see the opportunity. It was about execution. Who will execute better will move ahead of the pack. So if you're starting and there's no very established large player available, or no one addressing the PG that you're looking at. So in our case, for example, when we started Kaagaz Scanner, a lot of scanning apps were already there. You had Cam Scanner, the Chinese app, you had Adobe, you had Microsoft Lens, and a lot of other products also. Mostly global products being present in India. And of course, Cam Scanner ban happened, and that was probably the largest product that people were using. So suddenly there was a lot more, a lot larger void that was created. But at the same time, our thesis from day one was, we are building tools for the Bharat. We are looking at building tools for an audience who doesn't understand Adobe. who doesn't understand G Suite. They are not people who start their journey with emails. If you have to use an Adobe app, you have to start with email. If you have to use a G Suite app, you have to first have a Gmail. Our target audience doesn't have an email ID also. So we could identify that, okay, this product has existed forever, but for this audience, there's nothing built. Is there a large opportunity there? That's how we got started there, and positioned ourselves also that way, that we are building for the Bharat users. We are building what they understand, and then there's a large opportunity that is open. So if there are established players in the market, then identify, is there something that they are lacking, and is that a large enough opportunity, and then go on and build that. Or if it's a very nascent market overall, which food delivery would have been a few years back, or e-commerce would have been 10 years back, at that point everyone is starting, there's no established player. You can come up with your own idea of how to solve this problem, and if your idea is what people like, if you can execute it better than everyone else, then you have an opportunity that you can go after.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for answering that. So yes, like we will take some questions from the audience if they have any, because I guess you have covered almost most of the important points, and people might not have much questions, but still, like, we will wait.
I'll just
yeah, if you have any...
yeah, there's a little bit disturbance from my side, but I'll really appreciate one thing, like Mr. Snehanshu mentioned, it's not like one day thing, it's like 7 to 8 years. And I was very keenly observing as I was driving around with my earplugs plugged in. I was very keenly observing like the entire thing, like what he was telling, and I found it so systematic, and the clarity is amazing. What he is doing, what he's speaking, what is the future visions. So that was really amazing. So I think for an entrepreneur, see, I cannot see the entire road from Hyderabad to Vijayawada, but I have the clarity. I have this time, this resource, all these things, and that is my destination. Nothing else in my mind. I'm not thinking of Chennai or Bangalore. So I think that clarity is a must for not only an entrepreneur, perhaps anyone in life who wants to excel in anything. So my immense gratitude, my immense thanks to Mr. Gandhi to spare, like he has taken out time for our students. And we are not going to live in here, just right over here. So it's a long journey again started. Not might be 7, 8 years, but definitely there would be many students who must be needing that expertise. So I'll also request Prakash sir. Hello, Prakash sir. Anyways, maybe he's there.
There might be an issue on Prakash sir.
Yeah, he's there.
Yeah, I'm here.
Sir, few words from your side. So before Prakash sir speaks, I would like Khizer to just have a few lines on Prakash sir to introduce him to our guest.
Yes. Yes, sir. So Dr. Prakash sir is the head of Innovation Design and Entrepreneurship Academy of our university, and also he has a key role in establishing connections with the University of California, Berkeley, and our mutual relations. And he is also the head of department for mechanical engineering of our university and has immense experience in this field. So yes, take over.
Okay. Thank you, Mohammed. So welcome, Mr. Gandhi. So we are trying to set up this ecosystem in our new university. Our university is only 4 years old, and we are trying to do many things. This is also one of the most important things that we are doing, this set up some ecosystem for this entrepreneurship. To be integral part of this ecosystem, so we are doing many things. So the first important thing is we are offering this courses, regular courses, semester-wise courses we are offering in entrepreneurship. And for that, for curriculum of those courses and everything, we have a collaboration with Institute of California, Berkeley, and we devise the courses accordingly. And then we are offering these courses to the students of our university as open electives. This is one thing that we are doing. The second thing is, of course, we have a TBI, Technology Entrepreneurship. So the Technology Business Incubator that we have set up already, and our Mr. Udayan is working on it. And as part of that, we will, we'll guide these new startup ideas that students have come up, and we help them develop those ideas into a successful business venture. And for that, we'll be doing all the help. We'll be helping them all that kind of help that's required, like maybe initially maybe some still funding, and later on some external funding also, and also the prototype development, whatever lab they need, and whatever technical guidance they need. So we have all this big list of mentors that we have, which will be guiding them for technically all the mentors. So that is another thing we're doing. And the third thing, of course, is ecosystem that Mohammed has explained, that students, it's like a big list of students involved in many activities. So by that, the ecosystem will be developed, and will really create the environment where students can flourish. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great to hear
you, sir.
that, sir, and would definitely like to appreciate what you've been able to achieve. As I said, so I didn't know that the university is just 4 years old, and the kind of program that was initially explained also in 8 months what has been achieved. So would definitely appreciate what you've achieved as an institution, and I like how you're thinking as a plan going forward. So many things that you want to do. That's as Mr. Bakshi was saying, that you have to have a plan for a longer vision that you have. At Kagas, for users, we started up as a scanner, but we had a vision of building a document super app, or almost a G Suite, a Google Suite for the Bharat users, an equivalent for Bharat users. So similarly, I see that the kind of vision that you've just portrayed, it's great. I wish all of you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for this wonderful experience. Also, I would like to say, like, we have a technology business incubator. So we have around 35 plus ventures who are in various stages, like ideation stage, prototype stage, and a few of the ventures are in the advanced stages also. So in terms of that also, we are making progress so that we need bright minds like yourself. Like, we have definitely have a lot of mentors, national and international mentors who guide our ventures, being our elite in the elite mentor panel, so that we could get a real life experience. Because a teacher can explain a certain amount of thing, but a person who has experienced it in their journey, who has experienced the entire ecosystem of a startup, can definitely impart a better view, you can say. So we would like to invite you as a mentor also for our initiatives, for future initiatives as well. So regarding that, I will be sending you an email after this session, so that we get to know. So sure, sir. Thank you very much for your amazing experience, sharing your amazing experience, and joining us tonight. Anything from your side, sir?
No, it was a good 1 hour for me, and thank you so much for having me here. All the best to you.
Sure. We thank all the audience as well for joining us tonight. And this is live on YouTube as well. So we have a lot of audience over there also. So we like to thank all our YouTube audience as well. And also, especially to our chief guest tonight, Mr. Snehanshu Gandhi, for taking time and sharing the wonderful experience, along with Mr. Udayan Bakshi sir and Dr. Prakash Dada sir, so for making the night wonderful. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kishore, and Mr. Gandhi. We are really thankful to you for all your time. You're like we'll share the recording.
Sure.
Across our student communities to you and all. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.